Today we'll be taking a look at LiberNovo's brand new chair, the Maxis. And after spending some time with it, I genuinely think that this could be the best big and tall office chair on the market right now. If you're a bigger or taller person, then finding a good office chair is incredibly difficult. Most chairs that are marketed as big and tall on places like Amazon are cheap quality and aren't even big and tall. And on the other end of the spectrum, specialty purpose-built big and tall chairs can cost well into the thousands of dollars. That's why the Maxis really caught my attention. Last year, the LiberNovo Omni was my favorite chair that I tested. Not just my favorite chair under a certain price point, my favorite chair period. So when LiberNovo told me that they were taking the same foundation and redesigning it specifically for bigger and taller users, I was extremely curious to see whether they could pull it off. And after spending some time with the chair, I really think they have. This isn't just an oversized Omni. LiberNovo has reworked some of the most important parts of the chair, including the seat, backrest, armrests, and recline system to better accommodate larger body types. And these aren't just cosmetic changes or marketing bullet points. They're meaningful design decisions that directly address many of the issues that bigger users often run into with traditional ergonomic chairs. And it comes in at a price point that's dramatically lower than most purpose-built specialty big and tall ergonomic chairs on the market. Now before we dive in, I do want to mention that this video is sponsored by LiberNovo. However, they didn't tell me what to say and all opinions are completely my own. If you're interested in getting one, I'll have a link in the description where you can reserve yours with a $10 deposit and lock in the early bird pricing. Also, keep in mind that the chair I'm reviewing today is a pre-production unit. That means there may be some small differences between what you're seeing here and the final retail version. So with that out of the way, let's take a closer look at the LiberNovo Maxis. When it comes to the design, similar to the new Omni lineup, you get three different versions. The Maxis manual gives you a manual screw-driven lumbar adjustment. The electric version adds a motorized lumbar support, and the airflow version adds active seat ventilation and upgrades the upholstery. Now I talked a lot about these specific features in my Omni Pro and SE video, so I would recommend checking that video out if you want to know more about these different versions. But honestly, the model differences aren't the most interesting thing about this chair. What I really want to talk about are the big and tall specific design decisions, because this is where the Maxis really separates itself not only from the Omni, but from almost every other big and tall chair on the market. The reality is that most big and tall chairs aren't actually designed for bigger users. They're just larger versions of an existing chair. Even premium brands do this. Take the Herman Miller Aeron for example. You have a size A, size B, and size C, but fundamentally it's the exact same chair scaled to different dimensions. LiberNovo took a very different approach with the Maxis. Rather than simply making the Omni bigger, they designed the Maxis specifically for users between 5'10 and 6'7 and up to 399 pounds. And while it absolutely does feel like an Omni at its core, there are a lot of subtle design changes throughout the chair that make it much better suited for larger body types. The backrest is noticeably wider with a flared lower section that helps reduce pressure around the hips and lower back. The armrests are both longer and wider, and they feature this curved design that is intended to prevent them from pressing into your waist. A small detail, but one that immediately tells me that this chair was designed around real-world feedback from larger users. The seat depth has also been increased to 52 centimeters compared to the 45 and 48 centimeter options available on the Omni. For taller users, the extra depth provides significantly more thigh support and should make a noticeable difference during longer sitting sessions. And LiberNovo also upgraded every Maxis model with a one-piece aluminum alloy base to better support the chair's increased weight capacity and overall size. And that's really the theme that you'll see throughout this review. The Maxis doesn't just feel like a bigger Omni. It feels like LiberNovo looked at every major contact point on the chair and asked, how would this need to change for a larger user? The result is a chair that feels purpose-built rather than just oversized. Build quality is excellent across the board. Everything feels solid, substantial, and appropriately overbuilt for a chair designed to support larger users day after day. And at this weight capacity, that's not just a nice to have, it's essential. So now let's talk about the actual comfort of the chair, starting with the seat. And while I personally am not the target audience of this chair at 5'6", I had a larger friend test both the Omni and the Maxis, and the difference was immediately noticeable. With that said, the seat on the Maxis is one of the best I've ever used. Now LiberNovo carried over the same multi-layer zone foam design from the Omni with softer foam at the front edge for pressure relief and firmer foam towards the rear for support. The result is an exceptionally comfortable seat that ranks among the best I've ever tested on any office chair. Now one of the biggest improvements on the Maxis for larger people is the seat depth. At 52 centimeters, you're getting a noticeably deeper seat than the Omni, which maxed out at 48 centimeters. For taller users with longer legs, this is a meaningful upgrade. The additional depth provides more support under your thighs, helping distribute weight more evenly and reducing that unsupported feeling that you can get when the seat is too short. The Maxis also fixes my biggest criticisms with the Omni, the front seat edge. On the original Omni, the front portion of the seat cushion was a little too soft and could compress under your legs. This could give you that feeling of kind of sliding out of the seat. The Maxis features a reinforced front edge that completely solves that issue. The front of the seat feels much more supportive and you get a stronger sense of being properly planted in the chair. Now, if you go with the airflow version, you'll get LiberNovo's active airflow seat ventilation system. This integrates a centrifugal fan directly into the seat cushion to pull heat and moisture away from your body. The seat stays noticeably cooler and the system pairs really well with the Danish Gabriel fabric, which is a very breathable fabric to begin with. There's There's also a built-in occupancy sensor, which automatically pauses the fan when you get up and restarts it when you sit back down, which is a nice quality of life touch. And since bigger and taller users tend to run warmer, the airflow version is absolutely worth considering if temperature management is important to you. Now when it comes to the backrest, like the Omni, the Bionic FlexFit backrest remains one of the most flexible designs I've ever tested. It moves naturally with your body and feels even more flexible than chairs like the Embody or even the Steelcase Leap. Now what's different here compared to the Omni is the size and shape. The Maxis addresses the Omni's narrower profile with a much wider and broader backrest that provides significantly more coverage throughout the entire upper body. For bigger and taller users, this is a major improvement and one of the biggest advantages that the Maxis has over the original Omni. As for lumbar support, the implementation depends on which version you choose. On the Maxis Electric and Maxis Airflow, you get LiberNovo's motorized S-curve lumbar system controlled through the buttons on the armrest. And to be honest, as a traditional lumbar support system, I don't think this is the strongest implementation. The mechanism extends kind of upward at an angle, and once it moves past a certain point, it starts applying pressure higher onto your mid-back rather than directly onto your lumbar region. Personally, I'd love to see some form of angle adjustment added to a future version. That said, where this feature really shines is when you're reclined. Now when you're reclined all the way, it creates a really satisfying back stretch. So while I don't think it's an ideal lumbar support system, I do think it's an excellent stretching feature to give you some relief after extended sitting sessions. Now as for the Maxis manual, you get a precision screw-driven adjustment knob on the side of the chair instead. No electronics, no batteries, no motors. Just set it where you want it and then forget it. And interestingly enough, this is actually the version I prefer. Fewer moving parts means fewer potential failure points, and the manual adjustment gives you a consistent support position without any added complexity. Now when it comes to the recline on the Maxis is flat out one of the best I've ever used on any chair. You get 5 different recline positions at 105, 115, 125, 135, and 160 degrees. The progression feels very natural. 105 degrees is great for focused work, 135 degrees is kind of the sweet spot for more relaxed browsing or video calls, and 160 degrees is basically gaming chair territory. You can genuinely take a nap in this thing. Now one thing to note is that the Maxis uses a tilt limiter and not a tilt lock. This means that it's basically a backstop that will limit how far back you can recline, but doesn't lock you into a specific angle, so you'll always be able to come back up from a recline position. One new addition to the Maxis is the 6-spring controlled recline system. The goal is to eliminate that sudden drop feeling you sometimes get when a traditional recline mechanism gives way under your weight. For bigger and taller users especially, that sensation can make the chair feel unstable or unsettling like you're going to tip over. Instead, the 6-spring system provides resistance throughout the entire recline motion. As you recline back, you can feel the spring supporting your weight and slowing the movement as you approach the end of the recline range. Rather than hitting a hard stop, you're met with a soft, cushioned bounce that makes the chair feel noticeably more refined and premium. But what really makes the recline stand out is how seamlessly the entire chair works together. As you lean back, the headrest automatically retracts into the proper position without you needing to adjust it. The armrests also slide backwards to stay aligned with your arms, and the backrest continuously adjusts to maintain support throughout the entire recline motion. Whether you're sitting upright at your desk, kicking back to watch a video, or fully reclined to take a quick break, the chair adapts with you every step of the way. Now when it comes to the armrests, they've been significantly improved compared to the Omni. You get much larger arm pads with an arc design that keeps them from digging into your waist, which is a small but thoughtful improvement for bigger users who will typically have a wider midsection. In terms of adjustability, you get full 40 armrests with height, depth, width, and pivot adjustments, and the range of motion across all 4 directions is excellent. The adjustment ranges have been significantly improved over the Omni, and they're really good. You can basically get them into any position that you can think of. The arm pads themselves are also noticeably softer than those on the Omni. In fact, these are some of the most comfortable arm pads I've ever used on any chair. And just like the Omni, the armrests slide back with you as you recline, so you can really use them in any position. Overall, these are some of the best armrests I've used on any chair, and a huge improvement over the original LiberNovo Omni in my opinion. Now when it comes to the headrest, the Omni already had my favorite headrest on pretty much any chair, and thankfully LiberNovo kept everything that made it great. You still get that really soft foam padding, excellent adjustability, and that automatic retracting mechanism that moves back with you as you recline. On the Maxis, you get a much larger range of motion on each of the adjustments compared to the Omni. It's one of the few headrests I've used on a chair that feels genuinely integrated into the chair rather than just added as an afterthought. And it's included right into the price of the chair. Many high-end office chair brands will actually charge you extra for a headrest, and most headrests on those chairs are really bad. So I really appreciate how LiberNovo just casually has the best headrest on any chair, and it's built right into the base price of the chair. Alright, so now let's talk about value. Now pricing will obviously depend on which version you choose. The Maxis manual starts at $809, the Maxis electric starts at $1,049, and the Maxis Airflow starts at $1,239. Keep in mind that these are the early bird prices and will increase after the launch period. So if you're interested, you can reserve your chair with a $10 deposit using the link down in the description. At these early bird prices, I think the value is exceptional. There really aren't many purpose-built big and tall ergonomic chairs in this price range. Most competitors like the Aeron Size C, Leap Plus, or specialty options from places like Bodybuilt cost substantially more. And as for the warranty, LiberNovo backs the chair with a 5-year warranty, while the electronic components on the electric and airflow models are covered for 2 years. That's identical to what we saw on the Omni lineup, and is fairly reasonable given the amount of technology built into these chairs. It's definitely not going to compete with the warranty periods that you get from the top major brands though. And another thing to keep in mind is that LiberNovo is still a relatively new company. Unlike brands such as Herman Miller or Steelcase, there isn't a decades-long track record of warranty claims, customer service, and long-term reliability data to look back on. That's a real consideration and something you should factor into your decision, especially when you're spending this much money on a chair. But overall, I think LiberNovo did an excellent job with the Maxis. What impresses me the most is that they didn't just take the Omni and scale it up. They made meaningful design changes that directly address the needs of larger users. So if you're roughly 5'10 to 6'7 and up to 399 pounds, and you struggle to find an ergonomic chair that truly fits your frame, then the Maxis is one of the most compelling options I've tested at this price point. But this is a specialty chair, so for everyone else, I'd probably still point you towards the Omni lineup. But as a whole, for larger and taller users, I think the Maxis successfully builds on what made the Omni great, while making it even better suited for its target audience. So if you'd like to reserve one, I'll have links in the description down below. And if this review helped you out, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing.